Hey guys, I just wanted to show you the linear regression tool that I have in the Google Doc and how you can use it. This is an example of where you want to calculate the regression line. So I'm just highlighting the data, doing Command C or Control C to copy it to my clipboard, and then coming over here and going down, you can see this, down to the linear regression. By the way, in order to be able to edit and use this, you do have to make a copy. So you can go to File, make a copy, copy it to your drive, and then you'll be able to edit it. I already have some example data in here, so you can just delete that, and then Command V, or right click and paste, Control V, however you want to get your data in there. And then that will create a little chart for you, and this is the equation. Y equals A, which in this case would be 2.53, X plus B, which would be 7.35, and then this is the correlation coefficient of 0.9903. So it's really, really close to being linear and a really high correlation. So we can go back over here. Y equals 2.35x. Let's see, what does it say? Maybe 4 decimal places. Oh, actually, wait a second. It says right here 2 decimal places, so we're good with 2.35. And, or sorry, oh, I gotta change that to 5.3, and then 7.35. Okay. 7.35. And that would be it for this question. It doesn't ask about correlation coefficient, but if it did, then that would be what we'd want to enter. Now, on a question like this one, it already has the data graphed, and in part A, it asks for the value of the correlation coefficient, and they don't give you a column for X, a column for Y, so that you can copy and paste it into that linear regression tool. So I don't want you to have to go through and estimate what all these points are. You don't actually need to be able to calculate the correlation coefficient here. What it's asking for here is just, do you understand what this general line or this general trend, what would be reasonable for this? So first of all, with the correlation coefficient, you can only have values between -1 and +1. So that would rule out B and C right away. Then values that are close to +1, such as A, mean that it's a positive slope. That is going to be a line that goes up as you go from left to right. And that's not what the data is doing here. It's actually going down as we go from left to right. So it's not going to be A. So C and E seem pretty reasonable because they're both negative, and that's what indicates the data going down as you go from left to right. If the data are pretty close to being in line, like if you could imagine drawing a line through these points and the points are fairly close, those are going to be values close to either +1 or in this case close to -1. E would not be much of a correlation at all. We would really just see a bunch of really pattern. It would almost look more like a square or a circle. They would not be close whatsoever. These are definitely closer than that. They're not in a perfect line, but definitely we could see a line being, a linear pattern to these. So C would be our most reasonable answer here. And then this says, what does the value suggest about the linear relationship between the weight of the car and the fuel economy? So we're going to say if it's close to +1 or -1, it's a very strong relationship. So we're going to say very strong. So it'd be either the first choice or the last choice. And then we've already talked that it's going to be a negative correlation. So in this case, we would say A. If it was trending upwards, we'd say it's a positive correlation. And then C is really just getting at, do you know how to interpret the equation of a line? So if you remember back to other math classes, y equals mx plus b. So we want to look for the x. The number to the left of that is going to be our slope. That's our m. I would like to think of that as a mountain because I know slope it starts with an S, and in that equation y equals mx plus b, you don't see S, so it's hard to remember which one represents slope. But think of slope as a mountain. And so this negative 3.756, you do include the sign to the left, is our slope. And we want to know how would we interpret it. Well, first of all, we're going to rule out A and C because that is actually referring to the y-intercept. The 152.275 is where our line's going to hit our y-axis when x is 0. So it's either going to be B or D. Because it's negative, we are going to say decrease. And so just knowing those things is actually going to give us the answer choice of B. But if we read what it means, it says each additional 100 pounds of vehicle weight results in a decrease in fuel economy of 3.756 miles per gallon. Especially in a question like this, knowing probably context and a little bit about adding weight and how that affects fuel economy would help you get this right, if you could at least identify the slope. Okay, D says, what fuel economy in miles per gallon would you predict for a car that weighs 3,000 pounds? Which they're helping you out a little bit, letting you know, reminding you that X is 30. If we go back up and we look at the graph, we can see right here that the weights are in 100 pounds. So in other words, you're going to add 2 zeros to all of these. So this is 2,700 pounds, this is 3,900 pounds on this graph. Okay, so we want to know 3,000 pounds, which again is 30. We do have a dot right there, a scatter plot. If we didn't have a point, we can use our line. We probably should use our line anyway, our equation, excuse me. But we can see that this is going to be pretty close to 39 miles per gallon. But let's go down and see, okay? It says predicted miles per gallon. So what we want to do is we want to use the equation for our least squared line, and we want to put in that x value of 30 and calculate what this would be. All right, and that gave me this value, which is pretty close to what we're seeing in the chart up above. So that's a good sign. E says if a car that weighs 3,000 pounds, and again, remember that's going to be an x value of 30 because we're only going for every 100 pounds. And they're saying, okay, let's say that the car actually gets 25.8 miles per gallon. What's the residual? A residual is the difference between the predicted and the actual. So this is our predicted for x equals 30. This is the actual. We simply want to subtract those two values, and that will be our answer here. Okay, and that is going to, I got 13.795 when I subtracted 39.595 and 25.8. F says, is this car above or below the average miles per gallon for cars that weigh 3,000 pounds? Excuse me. And so we could even picture the graph. This is below 39.595. If we go back up and read the question, it's saying that the miles per gallon is the average fuel economy. This data is giving the average fuel economy. And so since that value would be below that, we would say this value gets below average. So if you noticed, I got 4 out of 6 on the last one. Well, one thing I forgot to do is click this button right here. The second thing I forgot, which is actually more of a good thing that I forgot, will remind you guys, I subtracted these in the wrong order. So we always want to do the actual minus the predicted. So I went the wrong direction, which actually would help you figure out that the vehicle gets below average since it's a negative value. So I hope that helps.